G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life and the Toyota GT86 / Scion FRS / Subaru BRZ. They've been extremely popular over the last 10 years in all sorts of racing series, but also for car enthusiasts because they are one of the few manual, front-engine, rear-wheel drive, small, sporty cars left on the market. And a little while ago, I had the pleasure of driving a manual one of these and it was absolutely fantastic. Completely stock, a sideways machine, really fun. But there's always been one little problem with the 86. The ND MX5 and S2000 aren't fast, but they are just that little bit faster than one of these, at least in stock form, and it does make a difference. And as a result, a lot of people who drive these, while they handle really well, complain they need just a little bit more power. And today, we're going to be finding out what one with a lot more power is like. In terms of exterior styling, I love the way this particular one looks. The wheels along with the sporty kit around the outside, the huge wing on the back, and then all the little decals here and there. It's just very tastefully put together and gives a really nice aggressive stance. Under the bonnet though is the part that you guys have come to see. From factory, these had a 2-litre boxer 4, made about 200 horsepower, 150 kilowatt, and 200 Newton meters. However, this car, as you can see, is far from stock under here. It's an HKS supercharger and it's a centrifugal supercharger, exactly the same as the supercharger that was on the supercharged Accord Euro R that I did. It's got an intake and a catch can, but everything else under here is relatively stock. And surprisingly with this one, it's actually paired up with the 6-speed automatic, but don't click away just yet because I've been assured that it has a transmission tune, and as we're going to see a bit later on, I imagine it's a lot better than the stock one. And of course, as you'll see around the back, it's got an aftermarket exhaust with quad tips, which looks really cool. The interior on this one, because it is a GT model, is actually really nice. I like the sort of interesting texture that it has across the dashboard here, and the steering wheel with the little red inserts here, and the really nice feeling silver pedals behind it. Looks very cool and feels fantastic to use. I love the gauges on these GT models as well. Naturally, as I mentioned before, this one is an automatic, but the cool thing about it is that it does at least feel really nice to sort of go through the gears. You've got heated seats down here, which is cool. All of the sport and traction control buttons here in the middle where they're nice and easy to access, and it's got pretty good features too. It's got auto lights, keyless entry, a reversing camera up here, parking sensors all over it. The seats are fantastic and really comfortable. It's got not much room in the back, but if you had to fit some people back there, you probably could for a short trip. So overall, I can see why people buy these. They're reasonably comfortable. If you get the GT model like this, they're reasonably well equipped. Everything looks quite cool. And above all else, you're sitting here and you go, yep, this is a driver's car. Driving the supercharged Toyota GT86. Naturally, with this one having an automatic, it's actually quite nice to drive. I'm surprised with all of these, you know, plus T or plus supercharger cars that I drive that aren't normally supercharged from the factory. I'm surprised at how normal they drive, but then of course you put your foot down and it's like, whoa, that's not stock. And as we're about to find out with this, I imagine this isn't going to feel terribly stock either, but let's see what it does. Oh yes, that's how this car should have come from the factory. This is the amount of power this car should have had. Oh wow. Okay, so the transmission's interesting, and I kind of like this about it, because as I've long maintained with a lot of cars that I've driven, I kind of like cars that are a little bit unpredictable, you know, where they don't always do the same thing every time. And my Lexus, you know, the transmission on it's flawed, right? It's not really a great transmission, at least compared with like a ZF8. And this is very much the same. It's not the most refined transmission I've ever used, but it does odd things, right? It doesn't always shift quite as quickly every time. Sometimes it does a great downshift, sometimes it doesn't. So when it does, like, you know, just out of nowhere one time, it just did a massive bang as it upshifted. It's just like, whoa, that was cool. And that's what I quite like about it, is that it always brings something new to the table that you weren't quite expecting before. And mate, for overtaking, oh, this thing is This thing's not slow, eh? Now, I couldn't drive a GT86 without testing out the handling, because I've been told that these cars on the right road handle really, really well, and this is one of the first ones I've driven that's been sort of, I guess, modified for a bit of handling as well. Oh, the steering feel on these is so good. Oh, it's no slouch. It's just a good, usable amount of power, which I like. Oh, and it does sound good too. There's so much whirring from the front end, it's real interesting. Oh, this thing handles beautifully. I'm having more fun in this with an automatic than I was in one of those stock manual ones. This is what the 86 needed to be from the factory, in my opinion. The stock 2 litre on this thing, it just didn't make enough power. But this, you know, now you can actually, you know, sort of get the back end wanting to step out a little bit as well, which you just can't really do on the stock ones because they just don't make enough torque, you know. Whereas this one in its format like this is so fun, and you still have all the great handling characteristics, but you get it with the power to shove you out of corners as well. Oh, I love those upshifts. So there we go. I hope you enjoy this episode of Kiwi Car Life. I've thoroughly enjoyed my drive in the supercharged 86. It's a really, really cool car to drive, and if you do this to your car, auto or manual, you won't regret it. It's brilliant. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Kiwi Car Life, and if you want to see some more interesting cars that I've reviewed, then click on the links popping up right about now, and I will very much look forward to seeing you again next time.